Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. More on food prices today. Researchers predict they will keep going up next year, as we told you yesterday. And one way to manage, we hear, is through sales and rewards points. But according to some of our callers to this show yesterday, those are not always accessible, especially if you're a senior. We'll hear from another shopper who faces similar challenges and from a researcher on barriers to those online savings. Plus, Brian Minter will join us to show how we can take care of our plants now that they're indoors, and he'll take your calls. I'm Michelle Eliot. Welcome to BC Today. Thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1 and live streaming on CBC Gem, cbc.ca/BC, and on the CBC News app. Well, yes, yesterday on the program, we discussed grocery prices, and the Canadian Food Prices Report predicts those will keep going up in 2024. On the open line, we heard from some of you who said they couldn't easily access some of those grocery sales or discounts and rewards points because they were online. We then got these emails to the show. Marie writes, I just heard the caller who referred to himself as a dinosaur when it comes to points cards and rebates at grocery stores. I'm 40 years old and I miss out on a lot of discounts at our local grocery store, where I have been steadily going for the past 12 years, because their discounts are only accessible for reward card holders who need to use an app or go online to redeem points. I am somewhat of a dinosaur, even at 40, and I highly disagree with these programs that exclude those who can't access them or simply don't have the time to deal with apps and technology required to get these discounts. That needs to change now. Bruce writes from Nanaimo, these are usually all just ways to buy, quote, your email address for $2 and eventually sign you up for a points loyalty card so that they can track your shopping behavior and market at you more directly. My wife uses some of them. I don't know if any are really worthwhile. I simply block those that aren't beneficial. And Glenn writes, customers are voluntarily paying more so they can collect points. Those programs cost money to manage and pay executive salaries. And then the customer gets some of their money back by buying stuff at full retail price. Thanks so much for your emails to bctoday@cbc.ca. We decided to follow up on this issue. And joining me on the line now is Allison from Victoria, who called in yesterday to share her story, but couldn't get on the line. And she's with us now. Hello, Allison.
Hi.
Thanks very much for calling us yesterday. Tell us what you wanted to say about accessing these points collection programs.
One chain that's across the province, you have to go online to get the reward, to register for the week to get points. And when I phoned and explained to them that I'm blind and I don't have the technology to do that, if the technology would work for their flyer, they said that I could go to customer service each week and then customer service would register. Well, I go there and they tell me that no, they can't do it. So I don't get the points except for the few that you get when you are purchasing. I don't get the sales, none of that. There is another chain on the island that has a volunteer program. They don't have a points. The volunteers would call and give your order or take your order. The store would then gather it together and deliver it.
Okay.
But they are way overpriced for my budget.
So, more of a specialty, and they deliver the food to you, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So would the other chain.
Okay. Why did they tell you that they couldn't sign you up once you went into the store?
They said that you have to do it online.
Oh, that you have to go online.
Yeah, and I said, but I was told that I could come to the desk and you would do it. Well, I don't know how, and nobody knows how.
Okay. Oh, wow. So what have you done with that since, Allison?
Well, I don't shop there.
Okay.
I don't shop there, and I don't shop at the more expensive one. And I go to another chain that is more affordable but doesn't have a rewards program.
So it's an issue of access to this technology for yourself. You're blind and you haven't found another recourse at these particular stores. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Allison, thank you very much for calling in yesterday. I'm glad we got to hear from you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
That's Allison joining us from Victoria. Well, we wanted to follow up with someone who looks into equity when it comes to technology. And Andrew Sixsmith is a gerontology professor at Simon Fraser University and also the director of SFU's Science and Technology for Aging Research Institute. Hello there, Andrew.
Hi, how's it going?
Just fine. Thank you for joining us. You just heard from our caller, Allison, some of our listeners as well about their experiences. What are your thoughts?
I think the sort of things that Alison mentioned are, reflect a lot of changes that have come with the technological change, which has really been unprecedented. I think everybody will recognize that in the last 10, 15 years, we've seen the way that society and the way we live our lives has been fundamentally transformed by online shopping, mobile technologies, et cetera, et cetera. So those changes have happened very fast. And when you have technological change or any kind of change, it has consequences. I think everybody would recognize that technology has its benefits. I can't imagine my work anymore without having technology. However, we must be aware that technological change will leave some people behind, and that's the sort of thing that we're seeing here. Whether that's because they may not have the money to buy a device or, have a data plan or have a mobile data plan, whether they have the skills, or in Alison's case, where you may have some sort of sensory impairment, which stops you being able to use these technologies. So I think this is a really big challenge when we think of social equity in the 21st century, because technology is not a luxury. It's part and parcel of our everyday lives, and we've got to recognize that. But equally, we need to recognize that for some people, it isn't an option. And that's a big challenge because people are left behind. They're excluded from, things like coupons. Now, I'm not an expert in the world of coupons, but I am aware that there are some very serious couponers out there. Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of people who depend on, getting discounts and coupons because of the cost of living, and we're seeing that go up and up. And usually, the sorts of things that we're talking about, these technological disruptions, affect the most vulnerable people within our population, and that's where we have to really be aware of how technology is really excluding people, or some people.
Yes, for some people, and for many, they see it as a solution, right? We did call Pattison Food Group this morning and hoping to follow up on what customers can do if they're not able to access things online and flyers and points and things like that. Last year, in July 2022 was when the Pattison Food Group moved to digital flyers. And they said more and more of their customers said they prefer to receive their deals and discounts in a digital format. So they've made the decision to move away from a printed weekly flyer. And so this part of this was due to digital use being at an all-time high. Cost savings efforts and aspirations to be a zero-waste company. So those are the benefits that for the company, for many of its customers. But how then can can advertisers or app developers be more inclusive so that everyone can benefit from these changes?
Let me make one comment about that, is that from my experience, while technology does make life easier and more able to access things as a consumer, my belief is that the majority of things that are now being services and online services are really organized around the benefit to the supplier, so that the shops, the service providers, etc. It's a lot easier for them to do things online than it is in a physical world. Now, while a grocery chain, may want to provide a good service for their customers, still the bottom line is that they're looking to maximize their business revenue. They want to make things as efficient as possible from their perspective. So when we see businesses claiming that this is what the customer wants, I'm not so sure about that. And we've got to be aware, for those people who are maybe don't have the money, maybe they don't have the skills, they don't have the social connections to help them use technology, then those people are going to lose out.
What are your concerns then, given we are all dealing with high grocery prices? Everyone's trying to find ways to save, and it seems like some of the daily solutions, shall we say, are not accessible to people who may be most impacted by high grocery food prices.
Yeah, so I work a lot with seniors organizations in Vancouver, and I'll give you an example. It's nothing to do with groceries, but when the COVID lockdown kicked in 2020, it was right in the middle of people filling in their tax returns. And for people who are on a low income, that was a serious issue, because it meant that they may not get the income support that they need. So really, what would happen before COVID was that people would get help by Seniors 411 organization, for example, that I work with in Vancouver. When the lockdown happened, they had to change their model overnight. How are we going to help people to be to access online services? And I think for many people, and I think Alison mentioned there may be community organizations where she lives, they may be able to help, for example, to help you to access particularly important online services. We're seeing more and more health services being available online, filling in your tax returns, that kind of thing. These are really important for people, and I think we need to be aware of, or at least have things within our communities that can help those people who don't have the skills, or maybe don't have the money to access and use technology. But it is a big challenge, and certainly what we're seeing nowadays is that a lot of people are having difficulties. One thing I was going to mention, that it isn't specifically older people or seniors. Sure. And I think somebody else made a comment earlier on, who was 40 years old. This is a lot around simply being able to afford to buy a device or get a data plan.
That's certainly a part of it, a big part of it as well. Andrew, thank you so much for helping us move forward and on this story and find out more about how it impacts people. Thanks for your time.
You're most welcome.
Andrew Sixsmith is professor in the Department of Gerontology at SFU and the Director of Science and Technology for Aging Research Institute at Simon Fraser University. It is 12:20 now. This is BC Today on CBC. We're live on Radio 1 and live streaming on the CBC News app and cbc.ca/BC. And yes, Canadians can still expect those food prices to increase in the new year, according to the Canadian Food Price Report. And we did get a lot of emails from you yesterday, and here are more. Suzanne writes, I disagree that produce, etc., is cheaper than fast, ready-made food. Not always. Please ask yourself why people resort to eating at McDonald's than to buy ingredients. Has anyone looked at the price of rice, for instance? If you have limited funds, you are not going to be able to fork out a large sum of money for a trip to Costco for bulk buying. I think those suggestions are simplifying the problem. GP writes, gluten-free products are the perfect example of producers and retailers taking advantage of consumers who have few choices. Until someone in your family is affected by the negative effects on your child's health of gluten, the public is unaware of the huge markup for such foods. We cannot live on vegetables and meat alone. Lisa writes, make menus around what's on sale. Buy day-old bread, stop buying a lot of processed food, use dried beans and lentils versus canned. Folks have to be ready to change unhealthy eating habits. For others, though, it might not be so easy. And Mark wrote, I noticed that the Christie Premium Plus box of salted top crackers looks the same as always, but there's a lot of space between the top of the box and the top of the crackers. I can't remember the weights, but I'm sure they are putting less stuff in that box. Patricia writes, your last caller got it wrong. It is not about cutting out treats. Are butter and meat treats? Where I live, butter is over $12. And a quick note from Brittany, who writes, with the grocery stores costing so much, perhaps now is an amazing opportunity to start supporting our small local farmer markets. Thanks for your emails to bctoday@cbc.ca. Well, every second Friday, we're joined by our gardening columnist, Brian Minter. And he's here now to share tips on caring for our plants now that they have moved in with us indoors. As always, he's taking your questions. Just call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. And Brian joins me now from Minter Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack. Hello, Brian.
Oh, Michelle,
Nice.
it's great to be with you again. And thank you so much for all you and Margaret did in terms of raising funds for the
Absolutely.
food bank last
Thank-
week. That was, it
thank-
was great to be there. And thank you.
Yeah, you know what? It was so great to see you last Friday. Thanks for coming out to our Food Bank Day special. And thank you as well for those tomato seeds. As always, giving them out to donors and people who have been so generous. I just want to give the latest food bank total as well, because you were such an integral part of our broadcast. $1,783,940.34. Thank you very much to our very generous CBC audience. You are going so far. Every little bit helps to help out families and individuals in need of food banks around our province. And you can still donate, by the way. That online donation site remains open until December 31st, cbc.ca/foodbankday. And you can donate and designate which food bank in BC you'd like it to go to. And you can also, you receive a tax receipt within a few hours. So, Brian, thank you for all your help, as always, with that.
Oh, it's so important. And it's just wonderful to be there. Thank you very much, Michelle.
And you are back today to talk about plants inside our homes. How are they doing?
Okay. We've had such a mild winter or late summer, late fall, try that one more time. We're confused because of the nice weather here. But pretty soon now, the plants are going to be struggling inside our homes. We are getting less light. Gosh, we're just a few days away from the shortest day of the year, light-wise, and they're struggling. So there's three things basically I would really encourage folks to do. And this is more important than ever before, because people in the relationship, the scientific relationship between plants, in terms of lifting people's spirits, in terms of just the whole attitude that we have in having plants around. It just makes us a little bit happier.
Absolutely.
There's so many other things, the cognitive abilities we have. I can go on for hours about how good they are for you, but we have to look after them. But the other thing is there's three things. Number one, more light as much as you can get.
Yeah.
Even if you have to shift plants to the south or west to capture some of this beautiful sunlight we're getting, but as much as you can, as long as you can. And if you possibly can pick up overhead lighting, it doesn't have to be, specialty lighting. It can just be light in terms of getting as close as you can to 14 to 16 hours a day, but light. Second thing is it's way too warm. And so we want to save you money and energy. This whole thing is really important. But if you can, wear a sweater, seriously, get the temperatures down in your house. When you do that, the humidity improves dramatically around your plants. And if you have registers right at your windows where you put plants, maybe you could close them partially at least, but cool the temperatures, get the humidity up, and that is so very, very important. And there's a huge change in terms of how much water, because plants aren't growing as rapidly this time of year. And so again, pick up the plant. Here's a beautiful calathea right here.
Oh, gorgeous.
6-inch pot. It is actually a very pretty plant. What I'm doing is picking up the pot and feeling the weight.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I can see that, it's heavy. It does not need any water. I've got a beautiful poinsettia, which are in many homes right now, too. Same thing. This is a new one called Summer Sparkles with all the little speckles on it, which is kind of great.
Is it ever so bright red, Brian?
Yeah, it is with the speckles, too. It looks really cool.
Yes, those speckles.
Yeah. But again, it is fairly heavy, so it doesn't need water. And even the beautiful anthuriums we have this time of year were so nice for indoor color because they're really resilient plants. Again, it's getting a little bit light, but I'm not going to water it. And when you do water, don't pour the cold tap on it. Warm water, lukewarm water would be absolutely great. So if you can give them more light, get the temperatures down a wee bit, you increase the humidity, and never beside the fireplace. That's kind of the worst place it can be. And they love to be root bound, and they love to be just moist this time of year. And it just saves our plants. And we have so many of our wonderful callers say, well, the plants are not doing well. There's ways to begin to correct that. And so just keep them alive and keep them well till we get back to our longer, great growing days at the end of March into April.
That's right. More light, lower those temperatures, and watch that water.
Yep, you bet.
Brian, such good advice. We have a couple of minutes before the news update. Brian Minter is with me, our longtime gardening columnist on the show, of course. And let's put out the numbers: 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 if you have a question for Brian. Russ, hello in Nanaimo. We have about a minute and a half left. Are you able to ask your question quickly?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Brian, quick question about tomatoes. Already planning for next year. The last summer and the previous years, my tomatoes were abundant, but rather on the smaller size. Is there a way to get them bigger? Is it that I need to prune them and grow less, hence the plant will be bigger, or is it the watering and fertilizing that I need to increase?
Yeah, Russ, those are all really good questions here. The thing is, and we're finding more people are doing this right now, the smaller cherry tomatoes are easy to grow. You get abundant numbers of them and so on. But a lot of us saying, well, you know what? I just want those bigger tomatoes. And it's choosing a bigger variety. And, some of the bigger, I would say getting in, not the beefsteak, because that's old, but beefsteak types. I love Beefmaster. It is one of the big boy, better boy. And these are good sized tomatoes. You slice them up for, all your sandwiches and so on to be able to use. So get those varieties. You're going to be absolutely fine. But one little tip that's coming up, Russ, if you look at some of these, the packages you buy, it's no longer Better Boy, it's Better Boy Plus.
Okay.
And the breeding that's gone into them is making them much more flavorful,
Brian,
and quite a difference. So keep that in mind.
Going to jump in for a moment here. We're going to pause for a news update, but Brian Minter will be back with us after this news update. More of your questions to him. Karis Hogg is here now.
The jury in the first-degree murder trial of Ibrahim Ali is continuing deliberations after receiving instructions from the judge during a hearing yesterday. The trial is set to wrap up more than 8 months after Ali pleaded not guilty to killing a 13-year-old girl in Burnaby's Central Park in July 2017. The judge's instructions to the jury had been delayed earlier this week after defense lawyer Kevin McCullough told the court he had received death threats over the case. BC short-term rental managers say that they fear they'll be out of business as soon as the province enacts a law next year restricting listings on sites such as Airbnb to a homeowner's principal residence. Nancy Payne says she has been working as a short-term rental manager for 7 years in Victoria, but she plans to close her business and lay off her 15 staff when the new rule comes into effect on May 1st. And the Public Health Agency of Canada says 4 more people have died in a salmonella outbreak linked to cantaloupes. The death toll is now 5, with 129 confirmed cases, including 15 in BC. The agency has updated its warning to include both Malachita and Rudy brand cantaloupes. And now look at the BC weather along the north coast. Today, chance of showers, high +5. In the Peace region, mainly sunny, high -4, with a wind chill near -14. For the central interior, mix of sun and cloud. Chance of flurries early this afternoon with a high of -4. In the southeast, a mix of sun and cloud, high 0, wind chill -7. For the central southern interior, mix of sun and cloud, high +2. And along the south coast, clear and a high of 6. Now back to Michelle Eliot on BC Today.
A very busy day here as well, as we have our gardening columnist, Brian Minter. The calls just come like a flood when Brian's here. So thank you very much, Karis.
No problem, Michelle.
That's Karis Hogg in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Welcome back. You're with BC Today here on CBC. We're on radio, live streaming as well on the CBC News app. And yes, we are back with Brian Minter, our very popular gardening columnist here on the show. And you can call in with your questions to Brian. It's 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone as well. And Brian, I'm sorry to have jumped in on you there earlier. You were responding to Russ's question about tomatoes, and you were saying there are certain varieties that he should look for and look at the labels as well.
Yeah, in terms of, there's some new varieties out there and new, flavorful tomatoes. They're really working on flavor right now. It's good. And when you see a plus series, that's a great one. But Russ is quite right in his response. Do you pick off some of the blossoms? And he's absolutely right. And no matter what variety you're growing, if you try and let every shoot come along, you're going to have so many that it's hard in the plant to produce those bigger plants. So maybe selecting like you would do in any other fruit, taking some of the blossom clusters off, getting fewer will make a difference. And of course, all the good, the way you grow them, your culture of way you're growing them, making sure that they get adequate food, especially the low nitrogen, high phosphorus, and potash. Those things will make a significant difference as well. And always organic if you possibly can.
Those are the things to watch out for us. Thank you so much for being our first caller to Brian today. Monica is up next now in Penticton. Hi, Monica.
Hi.
Hi, what's your question for Brian?
Yes, we had a bunch of river rock laid down over on top of the, we have 70-foot blue spruce trees. And I'm just wondering if that affects their growth and because the river rock wasn't put on some of them, and it seems like a couple of them aren't doing very good. They're 70 feet high, they're old, and I tried to rake a lot of the river rock off so that it would just be the soil. So, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Monica, I'm so glad you asked that question because some of the landscape architects, when I was doing a presentation up in Kamloops, some of the landscape architects were asking me the same thing. In terms of if you can keep the stones and the rocks and so on, and don't forget in the summertime, when it gets so very, very hot, the stones heat up as well. They put that extra heat layer, which I think is not good around the plant. So if you could take the stones away to the drip line of the tree where the outside branches are, leaving the bottom open, that will make a difference. And I totally agree. And of course, to keep it weed-free, before you do put any stones on or any kind of covering, use your ground cloth, which air and water get through, but of course the weeds don't, so that's a consideration as well. But out to the drip line of the tree, if you can keep it stone-free, anything that's going to heat up, Monica, it will make a big difference.
There you go, Monica. Thank you very much. Great advice to keep taking care of those spruce trees while you have some rocks on top. Monica, thank you for the call. Bill is on the line now in Vancouver with a question for Brian Minter. And Bill, you wanted to talk about tulip bulbs.
Yes, unfortunately, I was unable to put them in the pots in October, November, and I'm just curious if Brian has any solutions for me.
Oh gosh, Bill, you've got adequate time to do that. we wait until the end of the season. Any of the bulbs that are left over, we don't waste them. We put them all in containers, Bill, and pot them up in January. And they turn out beautifully. They're going to be a little bit later. And so that's the only thing. If you leave it really late, a lot of people don't find them until February. You need to put them in a shadier location rather than full sun. But at this point here, Bill, if you've got some nice weather, this coming up this week, according to CBC. So take advantage of it, get them planted. And remember, whatever the width of the bulb is, 3 times that deep, and you'll be absolutely fine. And great thing. Make sure the bulbs are firm, though, at this point. They haven't been a hot spot, but make sure they're firm. To make sure those bulbs will give you the full performance. So, Bill, you've got some work ahead of you.
Yeah, I'm storing them in the refrigerator right now. Is that a good idea?
Not a bad idea. Yeah, not a bad idea, Bill. Great.
Thank you.
Some work ahead of you, Bill, but some time still, which is good. There's the good news there. Thanks so much for your question about planting your tulip bulbs. In fact, we have another question on tulips, Brian, from Linda, who's waiting in the Kootenays. Hi, Linda.
Hi there. Hi, Brian. Yes, it's funny that part of my question was answered. However, because I'm in the Kootenays, I just got a great deal on a giant bag of really pretty tulip bulbs.
Nice.
It looks like they're in still really good condition. Our ground is thawed the last couple of days. I don't know what it'll be like in 2 days. Is it too late to put them in ground, or should I put them in pots, or should I wait like the previous caller and do it later? It'll be freezing really soon here.
Yeah, no, and I agree. Linda, please get them in right now. Take some good soil, if your soil's been frozen, that you have, anywhere around. Make sure they have well-drained soil. That's the key. But we forget the bulbs are incredibly tough and very resilient. And the best thing you can do is get them in the ground now. Maybe in the Kootenays, we want to plant them 4 or 5 times as deep as we would in the coast here. But in good drained soil, please try and get it done this afternoon or tomorrow morning, and they will be absolutely fine. The one thing I didn't mention, though, and this is really important, so we put a lot of the plants, the bulbs left over in containers, but we cover that container up with about 8 inches of bark mulch to make sure that they're protected from severe frost. They will freeze eventually as the frost goes through, but it gives them that extra protection. So Linda, if you don't mind, once you're finished, put some bark or even sawdust over top, and let's make sure it's fir or hemlock. And that, in fact, will give them the extra protection you need. But I think we need to move very quickly, though. But please get them in, and so you can enjoy them in the spring.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Busy afternoon ahead for you. And get that mulch as well. Jennifer is on the line from Bowen Island. And if you have a question for Brian Minter, you can give us a call right now. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 as well. We have about 20 minutes left with our gardening columnist here on the program. And Jennifer on Bowen Island, you have a question about verticillium wilt.
Hi, yes, I do. Hi, Brian. I have what I think is a case of verticillium wilt in the soil, and it has already killed 2 of my beautiful maple trees, and now I fear that my catalpa tree has it too. And so a 2-part question. One is, will the dropping leaves of the catalpa spread it? And then secondly, we want to cut the catalpa back because, as you know, they get notoriously huge.
I have one myself. Yep.
They're beautiful, but massive. So will cutting it back aggravate the tree and make the disease worse, or what should I do?
Well, the catalpas are incredibly strong and resilient, and I don't think you should have many problems with the maples, especially the Japanese maples. I know it has been a problem. And really good drainage is part of the solution to opening up the soil, put more mulch in around them so that the drainage is much better. And I know in Bowen Island, you've got some pretty well-drained soil there. But in terms of the catalpa, honestly, I would rake up the leaves and compost them if you possibly can. Just because of this particular issue. That to me is very, very important. And, I've got an 80-foot in the catalpa tree in one of our homes. And but we do prune it because it gets too big to be made for safety and the health of the tree, getting the dead wood out and so on. But yeah, I would recommend you prune as possibly as soon as you can. But you have the window, by the way, for pruning is right from when they drop their leaves in November until the end of February, March before they get them back. So you've got a large window to do that, but I would definitely prune them up and keep the soil area clean, but improve the drainage in terms of verticillium. That is one of the very important things that I think we should be doing.
Okay, so I don't have to worry about the leaves blowing into other parts of the garden and diseasing something else?
Well, no, I would rake the catalpa leaves up, though. That's what I said, and compost them if you possibly can. I think that just keeping your garden clean. I know the new trend is to let a lot of leaves for the insects and beneficial insects on our grass and so on. But I think we have a very important issue to deal with here. So let's get it cleaned up, everything cleaned up and off the ground and into the compost, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Good luck.
Good luck. And it's the pruning that has the wider window, right? Till February, not
it is.
Mopping up of the leaves.
Yeah.
Just to make that clear for Jennifer. Good luck to you, Jennifer. Thanks so much for the call. Liz is up next now in New Westminster. Hi, Liz. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Bit of an embarrassing question because I think I'm killing my beautiful 10-foot fiddly fig. Possibly. I was away for a month and somebody else was watering it. But before I left, I used mayonnaise to shine up the leaves because somebody told me that was a good idea. And I'm wondering if I'm killing it with the mayonnaise.
Yeah. Not a good idea. You've got oils in there that I would worry about, honestly. And I know a lot of people have great ideas, but always a little bit of caution unless you've done it before. But I would take a very mild detergent, something like Ivory Snow, and I would take a tissue and I would rub those leaves down to try and wash some of the oils off those leaves. Yeah. That is very, very important. And Liz, to be honest with you, two things. It's tough to go away and have someone else look after your plants. It really is. It's hard on them and it's hard on you and hard on the plants. But the issue is let's get those leaves cleaned off right away. And again, everything we talked about this morning, just giving it more light if you possibly can, and essentially a little bit cooler and good drink, but let it dry well between waterings. And I think you know that because you're doing well. And the other thing I would consider, Liz, once we get into the end of March, early part of April, I would consider pruning that fiddle leaf back quite hard. In other words, if it's really not responding well, when you prune the thin branches on the top back, you're going to get new growth coming out, and that new growth is going to renew the plant, renew the look of the plant, and make a significant difference. So, but in the meantime, if you don't mind, as soon as you can, with a tissue and a mild detergent, let's get those leaves washed down, please.
Get that mayonnaise off of there. It's not. It sounds like it is reparable, though.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
It is absolutely.
I'll be brave
worst
and
case
prune it
scenario.
back in March. Is that what you said, March?
Yeah, the end of March, early part of April, when the growing season begins indoors.
Yeah.
When they're getting enough light where the plant responds in the northern hemisphere wants to be able to start the growth cycle again. So all is not lost. The worst thing we could do is have a few damaged leaves. That the plant will be fine.
There you go. And Liz, no need to be embarrassed. This is
we all do
those things. Right?
That's right. That's right. You came to the right place. In fact, thanks very much for the call.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
Bob is up next now. Let's head to Chilliwack with a question for our gardening columnist, Brian Minter. Hi, Bob. Hi there, Bob. Can you hear me? I think we've lost our connection with Bob. If you want to call us back, Bob, my apologies. It's 604-669-3733 locally. Toll free around the province, it's 1-800-825-5950 to call in with your question for Brian Minter. You can also email, and that's bctoday@cbc.ca. James writes us from Victoria. I have winter pansies, and for some reason this year, when I deadhead them, they don't flower again, and I can't figure out why. And they always did this last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, winter pansies, depending on the weather, can be tricky. And remember that the violas, the smaller pansies, basically outperform the pansies. But if you get the newer winter varieties we have, like the Matrix series, they'll all come through. The solution, James, and we're doing this all the time right now because even though we have a few pansies left from fall, because the weather was so good, people weren't planting. We're cutting them back hard right now. I would say at least a third to halfway. Prune them right back, and now's a good time to do that because with the milder weather, we're going to get a little bit of growth, and they're going to stay there. But It's really a weather issue in terms of the fall, how pansies perform. And so basically no worries at all. And we're taking a lot of our beautiful pansies and cutting them back very hard right now, letting them stay dormant for the month of December, January, and then they're ready to go in February again. So a little bit of pruning, they'll be fine.
Oh, there you go, James. Thanks very much. All will be well. Richard is on the line now from Surrey. Hi, Richard. Go ahead, please, to Brian.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
So I have a climbing rose that I planted last spring, I guess, and it's its first winter. I planted it in a big pot, and now I'm just wondering, I hate to see the thing die. I didn't really have room to put it into the ground. Is it going to be okay over the winter? And how about pruning? Basically, it's shot up one big stalk way high, and I'm trying to get it to grow on top of this roof that I built, this gazebo that I built.
Oh, wow.
And can I just let that grow?
Yeah, I'm so glad you phoned, Richard. Number one is where you're living right now.
Well, I actually live in Port Coquitlam. I'm on the road in Surrey.
Port Coquitlam, okay, that's important to know.
Yeah.
Because Port Coquitlam varies. You can get some very cold outflow winds in the winter, even though it's supposed to be mild this particular winter. But one thing I would do for sure, if you can go to your local garden place and get a frost blanket or what is called insulate material, it'll make up a 10-degree difference in terms of giving insulation around your container. That is absolutely essential in containers and roses over the wintertime. So that's what I would do. The other thing is, even though, Richard, you want to be able to grow it up there, having one stem is never going to give you the look that you're hoping for. So we always say do our hard pruning in the spring after the last hard frost, which is about the end of February, early part of March. That's when you do your pruning. But with traditional climbing roses, what we do is allow 4 or 5 of the best stems that came along this year, go 3 or 4 feet high, and leave them there, get rid of everything else. And then essentially, when they start to grow in the spring, that second-year-old wood is going to be better flowering for you. And I think that's very important. So rather than having one stem up, I'd like to have many stems coming up. So end of February, I'd prune back to about 3 or 4 feet and encourage more shoots to come up, and that will give you a better flowering for next year. But the protection of that plant for the winter with a frost blanket around it is going to be absolutely essential, particularly when we get cold, Richard.
Imagine what that's going to look like. Yeah, thank you very much for the call. We have about 12 minutes left with Brian Minter here, and lots of people still on the line. Our numbers again, 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. And Pam is calling from Salmon Arm with a question about hyacinth. Hi there, Pam.
Hi, Brian and Michelle. I have these hyacinth bulbs that I've picked up, and they're starting to shoot already. And I'm wondering, the ground is already frozen outside. I just have the pots that I could put them in. Or is it okay to plant them in a pot and have them indoors, just in the living room? Because I do love the smell of hyacinths, and I don't know whether that would be good for them. Also, I picked up 2 of those little glass jar things, the shape so that I think you're supposed to set the bulb in the top with some water below, but does the water touch the bottom of the bulb or not? I'm not sure what to do, Brian.
Yeah, Pam, one question I do have to ask you, because it's a very good question. Do you know if you got especially prepared hyacinths or just the regular garden hyacinths? Did you get the prepared ones? That means they're heat treated and they're sold in a different section. They're more expensive because they're meant for forcing.
I just got them from Canadian Tire, and it says on the package, Orientalis hyacinths assorted.
Okay, then you didn't get the prepared ones, because the prepared ones say prepared hyacinths, and those you can put in the vases, but the traditional ones you can't. But go back and see if they have any prepared ones, because you can put those in vases in a coolest place you have inside your home. But in the meantime, Pam, I know the ground's frozen up there. I get it. I need you to, wherever you're going to plant them or want to plant them, break through that frost, because the frost would not have penetrated deeply in the ground at this point. So you just take away the soil on top down till you get the soil that is not frozen, and let's plant them today. If we can possibly do it please get them in. And again, put the soil back on top. But as an extra precaution, I would love you to put some sawdust or bark mulch on top, about 4 or 5 inches, just for that extra protection, because they haven't had a chance to get the roots going just yet. So that's what I would do. I would no fear about doing that at all. Please don't put them in pots at this point. It's better to just plant them where you want to enjoy those beautiful fragrances in the spring.
Okay.
And the smell too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pam, thank you very much. Brian,
Thanks,
can I
Pam.
just say, you never cease to amaze me. I mean, you just don't skip a beat with these
I've
questions.
just made so many mistakes over my life. I've learned from.
Well, that's what it is. People call in with their mistakes and we all learn together, right? But
We do.
I can't. Yes, I am just in awe all the time. And I'm sure our listeners and our audiences as well. Our numbers again for Brian Minter, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Do not be embarrassed about calling in with your gardening questions. Our email is bctoday@cbc.ca. Abby is on the line from Maple Ridge. Hi, Abby.
Oh, hi, Michelle, and hi, Brian.
Hi.
I have a question about collecting eggshells for my garden. I've been collecting many eggshells, and I do have a composter in my backyard. I'm not sure if I'm wasting my time collecting the eggshells, and should they go direct into the compost? Should they go? Should I be crushed? I've seen lots of opinions about maybe cooking them like in the oven a little bit and then crushing them to a fine powder and maybe sprinkling them on top of the garden. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Abby, you're making this a lot of work.
Yeah.
We are. And I applaud you for doing it because, eggshells are essentially calcium. And, if you do crunch them up, but again, it's not instant. Anything like this needs time to break down to be effective. And pulverizing it, yes, certainly will make it effective more quickly. And for example, on our tomatoes, without calcium, you'd have blossom and rot, and the plants wouldn't be, nearly the same. To me, if you have a lot of them, I love compost, but the one thing about compost people don't realize, it's wonderful organic matter put back in your soil. It's full of bacteria, but often it doesn't have a lot of nutrients, depending on what we put into the compost. And that's why putting eggs and shells into the compost adds calcium. And that's one of the main ingredients that plants absolutely love. So unless you need it in a hurry to help your tomatoes where you would pulverize it, I would just, crunch them up as best you possibly can and let the compost and the bacteria do the work to break them down. That's going to me, add a lot of value to the compost the next spring.
Okay, my composter is, just basically fruits and vegetable cuttings.
Yeah, exactly. It will help a tremendous amount. It really will.
Okay.
Yeah. No need for the oven, Abby.
No. Okay, I can get rid of those eggshells now.
There you go. It's a good plan.
Thanks for what you're doing. You're doing something very well. You really are.
That's right.
Okay.
Win-win. Abby, thank you so much. That's Abby in Maple Ridge. Now, we lost our connection with Bob in Chilliwack earlier. We have him back. Welcome back, Bob.
Oh, hello there.
Glad to have you.
Hi, Brian. There's a murder going on, and I'm ready to commit one. I finally got my lawn looking quite decent this last year, and the crows have destroyed it. What can I do? When should I do it?
The murder of crows.
Yeah. The murder of crows is right. That's a bunch of them. But seriously, at this point here, the only thing I would do with my lawn right now is add lime. We're going to get, and we have been getting atmospheric rivers out here. We're getting more moisture, and it pushes the pH down. And it makes it difficult for lawn grasses to be able to grow and get the roots back again. So let's put some lime on in the fall. That's all I'm going to do. The other thing is, there's two key things here. One is aeration. If you can get a hand aerator, Bob, and go when you can push a pencil nicely into the soil, you know that's ideal time for aerating. So aerating, if you possibly can, improve the drainage and the tilt of the soil so the lawn grass gets deeper in the ground. So when we get hot weather next spring, it's going to make a tremendous difference. And if you don't mind, I'd love you. I'm making a lot of work for you, Bob, here. Sorry. But if you can put a 1/4 inch of sharp sand, or really, sand that is not, make sure it's washed so it doesn't have a lot of weeds in it. But that will, in fact, do the best thing you possibly can. The crows are there for grubs, and they're digging it up and making, a bit of a mess over there. Those will quickly, fill in over the wintertime, and they'll be great next spring. So in terms of, controlling grubs in your lawn, there's not much we have anymore. We used to use 7 as a control. That's been taken off the market for a lot of grubs in the lawn. So we don't have much left to be able to deal with that. But by having really well-drained soil, it's going to lessen the attraction of your lawn to grubs and other things. So that's why we want that good drainage. And the lime will bring the pH of the soil up. And it's an ideal time to do it now, not in spring. And it will make a difference, Bob. So those are 2 things I'd love you to work on. And if it's really messed up, sometimes taking a roller this time of year too, after you've done everything else, and just roll it, get it flattened out, a lot of those little mounds and hills too.
So lime now, sand at any time, and aeration now also?
Yeah, I want you to aerate first. So when you do aerate, when you buy a hand aerator, the plugs come out. You want to replace those plugs with sand, and no more than a 1/4 of an inch of sand over top, and that will improve your lawn like a miracle. It makes all the difference in the world.
Okay.
Bob, thank you very much. You're our last caller today. Glad we got you back on. Take care. And Brian, as always, such a pleasure. We have so many more questions for you, and glad we had a little bit more time for you on the show today. We'll do the same next time.
Well, I absolutely love it. It's nice to talk to our listeners. We have so many great ones.
Sure is.
It's nice to spend time with them. So thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Have a nice weekend, Brian. Brian Minter from Minter Country Garden. He joined us from Chilliwack. This is BC Today here on CBC Radio 1. And as we head into the weekend, I want to give out our food bank total once again. We had our Food Bank Day special here on the show, 3-hour edition of BC Today and North by Northwest. And that total so far is $1,788,715.96. I think that's gone up since I gave it a half an hour ago. You can make your donation at your convenience at cbc.ca/foodbankday. You can choose the food bank you'd like your donation to go to. This is BC Today here on CBC. I'm Michelle Eliot. Thanks so much for being with us. And join us on Monday. We are going to talk about winter activities, ways to get out and enjoy the winter, snowing, skiing, snowshoeing rather, camping, all of that. My thanks to the team here on the show, Rachel Adams, Melody Jacobson, George Baker, Greg Kisser, and Bradley Stewart. I'm Michelle Eliot. Have a wonderful weekend yourself. Thank you for joining us.